My daughter declared, "We're taking your house through court and selling it. Start packing your things and get out." I just smiled. She didn't know that the house was actually all ready. Good day, dear listeners. It's Louisa again. I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. For 63 years, I had called that house my home. Every creak in the floorboards, every crack in the ceiling told a story. My late husband Robert and I had bought it in 1962, when the neighborhood was just starting to bloom with young families and fresh paint. We raised our daughter Jennifer there. We celebrated Christmases, birthdays, graduations within those walls. After Robert passed 5 years ago, the house became even more precious to me. It wasn't just a building, it was a living memory of our life together. I kept his reading chair by the window. His tools still hung in the garage. Sometimes I'd walk through the rooms and swear I could still smell his aftershave. Jennifer had always been complicated. Even as a child, she wanted things her way. When she didn't get them, there were tantrums, manipulations, cold shoulders that could last for weeks. As she grew older, those tactics simply became more sophisticated. She married Derek when she was 28, a real estate developer with slicked back hair and a smile that never quite reached his eyes. I tried to be supportive, but something about him made my skin crawl. For years, they lived well. Big house in the suburbs, luxury cars, expensive vacations posted all over social media. Jennifer would visit me occasionally, but those visits grew shorter and more transactional over time. She'd ask about my health, my finances, whether I'd updated my will. Always casual, always smiling, but I noticed. The first real warning sign came about 8 months before everything exploded. Jennifer started visiting more frequently, sometimes with Derek, sometimes alone. She'd walk through my house slowly, touching things, measuring spaces with her eyes. "Mom, this place is getting too big for you," she'd say. "Aren't you tired of maintaining it? Don't you want to downsize?" I'd smile and change the subject, but I wasn't blind. Then came the suggestions about memory care facilities. "Just for when you're older, Mom. Just to be prepared." I was 78 and sharp as a tack. I balanced my own checkbook, drove myself to the grocery store, volunteered at the library twice a week. What exactly did she think I needed to be prepared for? 3 months ago, Jennifer brought Derek and a man in an expensive suit she introduced as a family attorney. They sat in my living room, Robert's living room, and talked about protecting my assets and estate planning. The lawyer had papers. Jennifer had talking points. Derek had that smile. I served them tea and listened. And I understood. They wanted my house, not after I died, now. They wanted me to sign it over, move into some facility, let them manage my affairs. The lawyer used words like trust and security and your daughter's peace of mind. Jennifer held my hand and looked concerned. Derek nodded along like a dashboard ornament. I told them I'd think about it. They left those papers on my coffee table. After they drove away, I sat in Robert's chair and stared at those documents for a long time. My hands weren't shaking, not yet. But something cold had settled in my chest. 2 weeks later, Jennifer called. "Have you thought about what we discussed, Mom?" "I'm still considering," I said. Her voice changed, just slightly, just enough. "You know, at your age, these decisions shouldn't wait. What if something happens to you? What if you become incapacitated? Derek and I would have to go through probate, and it would be such a mess. We're just trying to help you avoid that." "I'm sure you are," I thought. But I said, "I appreciate your concern, sweetheart." The calls became more frequent, the visits more insistent. And then, last Tuesday, everything crystallized. Jennifer arrived unannounced with Derek. No warning, no courtesy call. They walked into my kitchen like they owned it, which, I suppose, they believed they soon would. "Mom," Jennifer said, and her voice had none of its usual false warmth. "We've been patient. We've tried to do this the easy way, but you're being stubborn and, frankly, irresponsible." I set down my coffee cup. "Irresponsible?" Derek stepped forward. "We've consulted with our attorney. Given your age and your diminishing capacity—" "My what?" Jennifer's face hardened. Interesting how quickly the mask could fall. "We're filing a petition for conservatorship. We have documentation of your declining mental state. We'll get control of your finances, your property, everything, and then we're selling this house." I stared at her. My daughter. My only child. She leaned in close. "We're taking your house through the courts and we're selling it. Start packing your things and get out." I smiled. I actually smiled. Because what Jennifer didn't know, what she couldn't possibly have known, was that the house wasn't mine anymore. After they left, I sat at my kitchen table for a long time. The late afternoon sun slanted through the windows, casting long shadows across the linoleum that Robert and I had installed together in 1979. My hands were finally shaking now. Not from fear, from rage. How dare she? How dare they walk into my home, my sanctuary, and threaten me like some incompetent old woman who couldn't manage her own affairs? But beneath the anger, there was something else. A cold, creeping fear. What if they actually could do it? I'd read stories about elder abuse, about adult children who manipulated the legal system to seize control of their parents' assets. Conservatorships weren't impossible to obtain, especially if you had a slick lawyer and falsified medical documentation. I thought about what I could lose. Not just the house, though that would be devastating enough, but my independence, my dignity. My final years spent in some sterile facility while Jennifer and Derek liquidated everything Robert and I had built together. The fear threatened to paralyze me. I'm just one old woman, I thought. What can I possibly do against them? Then I looked at the photograph on my refrigerator. Robert in his Navy uniform, young and strong and absolutely fearless. He'd stormed beaches in the Pacific. He'd built a business from nothing. He'd never backed down from a fight, especially not when someone he loved was threatened. What would Robert do? The answer was obvious. He'd fight back, smart, strategic, and absolutely ruthless when necessary. I stood up from the table. My hands had stopped shaking. If Jennifer wanted a war, she'd get one. But it would be fought on my terms. First, I needed to understand exactly what I was up against. I spent that evening at my computer. Yes, I know how to use a computer, thank you very much. Researching conservatorships, elder abuse, property law. The more I read, the clearer the picture became. Jennifer and Derek's strategy was actually quite clever, in a disgusting sort of way. They'd establish a pattern of concern about my mental health. They'd manufacture evidence, maybe claim I'd forgotten conversations, misplaced items, made poor financial decisions. They'd find a doctor willing to testify that I was declining. Then they'd file for conservatorship, present their evidence to a judge, and if successful, gain legal control over my entire life. Once they had conservatorship, selling my house would be trivial. They could claim it was in my best interest to move to assisted living. The proceeds from the sale would theoretically go into a trust for my care, but conservators had wide latitude in how they managed those funds. Fees, expenses, administrative costs. The money could disappear in 100 legal ways. It was sophisticated, it was predatory, and it happened to vulnerable elderly people every single day. But I had one advantage they didn't expect. I'd seen it coming. That night, I barely slept. My mind raced through possibilities, strategies, countermeasures. By dawn, the outline of a plan had formed. If they wanted to claim I was mentally incompetent, I'd need proof I wasn't. Medical documentation from my own doctor, cognitive assessments, anything that established my mental acuity. I made a note to call Dr. Morrison first thing in the morning. But that was defensive. I needed offense too. The house was the target, which meant the house was also my weapon. If I couldn't own it, they couldn't take it. But who could I trust with something so precious? The answer came to me as the sun rose over my backyard. I'd planted those rose bushes 30 years ago. I'd watched them grow, bloom, survive harsh winters and hot summers. They'd endured because they had strong roots. Roots. Family. But not the family that had betrayed me. I thought about my grandson, Tom. Jennifer's son from her first marriage. The marriage that had ended badly when she'd cheated with Derek. Tom was 25 now, working as a teacher in Oregon. He called me every Sunday without fail. He'd visit when he could, and we'd talk for hours about books, about life, about his students. Tom was nothing like his mother. He had his grandfather's integrity, his kindness. And Jennifer had always resented their closeness, had always tried to minimize it. What if... I picked up my phone, my heart pounding. It was 6 a.m., but Tom would be awake. He was an early riser like his grandfather. He answered on the second ring. "Grandma? Is everything okay?" Just hearing his voice, concerned, genuine, made my eyes sting with tears. "Tom," I said, "I need your help. And I need you to not tell your mother about this conversation." There was a pause. Then, "What's she done now?" Smart boy. He knew his mother better than she realized. "She's trying to take the house," I said. "She's trying to take everything." Another pause. When Tom spoke again, his voice was hard. "Tell me what you need." 3 days later, I sat in the office of Margaret Chen, the attorney Tom had recommended. Her office was modest, but professional. Law books lining the walls, certificates and diplomas arranged precisely. A photo of her wife and children on the desk. "Mrs. Patterson," she said, reviewing the notes I'd brought. "Your daughter hasn't actually filed for conservatorship yet?" "Not yet," I confirmed, "but she's threatened to. And I believe she's laying the groundwork." Margaret nodded slowly. "The best defense is preparation. First, I want you to get a complete medical evaluation, physical and cognitive. We'll establish a baseline showing you're of sound mind and body. Second, we need to document everything. Every conversation with your daughter, every visit, every threat. Dates, times, witnesses if possible." "I've started a journal," I said, pulling out a small notebook. I'd been recording everything since Jennifer's threats began. Margaret smiled approvingly. "Good. Now, about the house. You mentioned you want to protect it." This was the crucial moment. "I want to transfer ownership," I said, "to my grandson, Tom. As a gift." Margaret's expression became cautious. "Mrs. Patterson, I need to be clear with you. Transferring property to avoid a conservatorship could be challenged in court. If your daughter can prove you did this specifically to thwart her legal petition, a judge might reverse the transfer. But I'm doing it now, before any petition is filed," I said. "I'm a competent adult making a decision about my own property. I want to gift my house to my grandson. That's perfectly legal, isn't it?" "It is," Margaret agreed. "But timing matters. If she files within days of the transfer." "Then we document my reasoning," I interrupted. "Tom has always been close to me. He's responsible, trustworthy. I'm ensuring the family home stays in the family. That's a reasonable gift from a grandmother to a grandson." Margaret studied me for a long moment. "You're sharper than most people half your age. All right, let's do this properly. I'll draft the deed transfer documents. We'll need Tom here to sign, and we'll need witnesses. Notarization. Everything by the book." "Tom's flying in tomorrow," I said. Over the next week, I moved like a woman with purpose. Dr. Morrison gave me a complete physical and cognitive evaluation. "Helen," he said, reviewing the results, "you're in better health than most 60-year-olds. Your memory, reasoning, judgment, all completely normal. Better than normal, actually." "Would you be willing to document that?" I asked. He understood immediately. "Is someone claiming otherwise?" "My daughter thinks I'm declining." His jaw tightened. Dr. Morrison had known Jennifer since she was a child. "I'll write the most detailed medical assessment of my career," he said. Tom arrived on Wednesday. We sat in my living room, the same room where Jennifer and Derek had threatened me, and I explained everything. Tom listened, his face growing darker. "She's really doing this? She's really trying to steal your house?" "She believes she's entitled to it," I said, "and she'll use any legal mechanism to get it. What do you need me to do?" "Accept a gift," I said simply. "I'm transferring the house to you. You'll be the legal owner. I'll remain living here. We'll draw up a life estate agreement giving me the right to live here until I die. But the property will be yours." Tom shook his head slowly. "Grandma, I can't take your house." "You're not taking it. I'm giving it to you, and you're protecting it from your mother." I leaned forward. "Tom, this house is my last connection to your grandfather. I will not let Jennifer sell it to fund her lifestyle. I will not let her erase everything your grandfather and I built. Will you help me?" He took my hands. Of course I will." On Friday morning, we met at Margaret Chen's office. The deed transfer was executed with precision. Witnesses present, everything notarized, every requirement met. By noon, the house at 347 Maple Street was legally owned by Thomas Patterson, Jr., with Helen Patterson retaining life estate rights. Margaret filed the deed with the county recorder that afternoon. "It's done," she told me by phone. "The transfer is public record now." I thanked her and hung up. Then I sat in Robert's chair and waited. It took exactly 4 hours. Jennifer's car screeched into my driveway at 4:47 p.m. I know because I checked my watch. She didn't knock. She had a key. The door flew open and she stormed into my living room, her face twisted with fury. "What?" she hissed. "Did you do?" Derek was right behind her, holding a phone. "She transferred the house. She gifted it to Tom. It's in the public records." Jennifer's hands were shaking, with rage, not fear. "You senile old bitch. How could you?" "Careful," I said quietly. "I'm recording this conversation." I held up my phone, the voice recorder app clearly visible. Both of them froze. "You wanted evidence of my mental state," I continued, my voice calm. "Here's evidence. I'm competent enough to protect my assets from thieves, even when those thieves are my own daughter." Jennifer's face went white, then red. "You can't do this. We'll challenge it. We'll prove you were manipulated, that Tom coerced you." "With what evidence?" I asked. "Dr. Morrison has certified I'm in perfect mental health. Margaret Chen will testify I understood exactly what I was doing. Tom wasn't even in the state until 2 days ago. What exactly will you prove?" Derek grabbed Jennifer's arm. "We need to talk to our lawyer." They left without another word. But as Jennifer reached the door, she turned back. The look she gave me was pure hatred. "This isn't over, Mother." "No," I agreed, "it isn't." The weekend passed in tense silence. I knew Jennifer and Derek were regrouping, consulting with their attorney, looking for angles. I wasn't naive enough to think the deed transfer would end this. If anything, I'd just escalated the war. On Monday morning, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Mrs. Patterson, this is Richard Kramer from Kramer and Associates. I represent your daughter Jennifer Patterson Holbrook. I'd like to discuss the recent property transfer you executed." "I'm represented by counsel," I said. "Margaret Chen. Contact her." "Mrs. Patterson, I think we can resolve this without getting attorneys involved." "We're already involved. Goodbye, Mr. Kramer." I hung up and immediately called Margaret. "They're trying to negotiate around you." "Predictable," she said. "Don't speak to them or their lawyer without me present. And Helen? Expect them to escalate." She was right. That afternoon, Jennifer and Derek arrived with two people I'd never seen before: a middle-aged woman in business attire and an older man with a briefcase. Jennifer didn't bother with pleasantries. "Mom, this is Dr. Patricia Whitmore, a geriatric psychiatrist. And this is Arthur Levinson, our family attorney. We need to talk." I stood in my doorway, blocking entry. "No, we don't," Derek pushed forward. "Helen, we're trying to help you. This property transfer, it's a clear sign of diminished capacity. Dr. Whitmore has agreed to evaluate you." "Without my consent?" "I don't think so." The psychiatrist spoke, her voice professionally gentle. "Mrs. Patterson, your daughter is concerned about your welfare. If you're making impulsive decisions, giving away major assets—" "I gave my house to my grandson," I said clearly. "After careful consideration and legal consultation. That's not impulsive, that's estate planning." Levinson opened his briefcase. "Mrs. Patterson, we have witnesses who will testify to your declining mental state. Your neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, says you forgot her name last month. Your hairdresser says you missed an appointment and didn't remember making it. The pharmacy called you 3 times about a prescription you didn't pick up." My stomach dropped. They'd actually been building a case, gathering evidence, creating a narrative. "Mrs. Rodriguez and I joke about forgetting names," I said. "I rescheduled one appointment because I had the flu, and I switched pharmacies because the new one has better prices. Would you like me to provide proof of all that, or are we done here?" Jennifer's voice rose. "You're being impossible. We're trying to protect you from yourself." "No," I said, "you're trying to steal my home, and I've made sure you can't." Derek stepped closer, his voice dropping to something ugly. "You have no idea what we can do, Helen. We have resources. We have lawyers. We can make your life very, very difficult." "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise," Jennifer said. "We're filing for conservatorship this week. We have medical experts. We have documentation. We'll prove you're incompetent. And when we do, every decision you've made, including that little stunt with Tom, will be reversed." I met her eyes, my daughter's eyes. When had they become so cold? "File whatever you want," I said. "I'll see you in court." I closed the door in their faces. My hands were shaking again as I locked the deadbolt. Through the window, I watched them huddle on my driveway, arguing amongst themselves. Dr. Whitmore looked uncomfortable. Good. She should be. They left 15 minutes later, but the threat lingered like smoke. Over the next 2 days, it got worse. They filed the conservatorship petition. Margaret called to inform me. They'd attached a declaration from Dr. Whitmore claiming I displayed signs consistent with early cognitive decline. They'd included statements from neighbors and acquaintances, all carefully worded to suggest I was confused, forgetful, making poor decisions. Margaret scheduled an emergency hearing. "We'll fight this, Helen. We have Dr. Morrison's evaluation, your medical records, character witnesses. But I want you to be prepared. Conservatorship cases can be unpredictable. Judges err on the side of caution, meaning they might side with Jennifer. It's possible." That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked through my house, touching things. Robert's books, our wedding china, the handprints Tom had made in preschool, still in their frame after 20 years. What if I lost? What if, despite everything, they convinced a judge I was incompetent? They'd put me somewhere sterile and safe, sell everything I loved, and visit me on holidays with fake smiles and empty words. The fear was overwhelming. I sat on my bedroom floor and cried for the first time since Robert's funeral. But in the morning, I got up. I showered. I dressed carefully. I made coffee and toast, and I ate breakfast while reading the newspaper. I was 78 years old. I'd buried a husband, raised a child, survived losses that would have broken weaker people. I was not broken yet. I called Margaret. "What do we need for the hearing?" "Everything you've got," she said. "And Helen? Take a few days, rest, get your strength back. The hearing isn't for 2 weeks. You need to be sharp." She was right. I needed to regroup, recover, prepare. For 3 days, I deliberately stepped back from the fight. I tended my garden. I had lunch with friends. I video called Tom, who was furious about the conservatorship petition and ready to fly back immediately. "Not yet," I told him. "Save your strength. I'll need you at the hearing." By Thursday, I felt clearer, stronger, ready for whatever came next. And something was definitely coming. Friday afternoon, my doorbell rang. I checked the peephole and saw Jennifer, alone this time. No Derek, no lawyers, no psychiatrists, just my daughter holding a bakery box. I opened the door but kept the screen latched. "Mom?" she said, and her voice was different, softer, almost pleading. "Can we talk? Please? I brought your favorite, lemon bars from Rosie's. The ones Robert used to bring me every Friday." She remembered. I hesitated, then unlatched the screen. 5 minutes. We sat at the kitchen table. Jennifer opened the box and the sweet tart smell of lemon filled the air. For a moment, I was transported back 30 years. Jennifer at 10, helping me bake, powdered sugar on her nose. "Mom, I'm sorry," she said. "I'm so sorry about all of this. I've been under so much pressure. Derek's business hasn't been doing well, and we've made some bad investments, and I just panicked. I thought if we could sell the house, we could get back on our feet." There it was, the truth, or at least part of it. They needed money. "So you tried to take my home," I said quietly. I know how terrible that sounds. But Mom, I'm your daughter. I love you. This has all gotten so out of control." She reached across the table for my hand. "Can't we just forget all of this? You withdraw the deed transfer, I withdraw the conservatorship petition, and we start over. Family shouldn't fight like this." I looked at her hand covering mine. I'd held that hand when she was born, taught her to ride a bike, walked her down the aisle twice. "And the house?" I asked. "You keep it, of course. We'll figure out our financial problems some other way. I just want my mom back." It was a good performance. If I didn't know better, I might have believed the tears gathering in her eyes. "What about Derek?" I asked. She waved dismissively. "Derek agrees. He feels terrible about how aggressive he's been. He just gets protective of me, you know? But we both just want to fix this." I picked up a lemon bar, took a small bite. Perfectly sweet. Perfectly tart. Just like I remembered. "Jennifer," I said, "do you remember what your father used to say about deals that sound too good to be true?" Her smile faltered slightly. "What?" "He'd say they usually are." I set down the lemon bar. "You want me to give up the legal protection I've put in place and trust that you'll simply walk away, that you won't refile the conservatorship petition the moment I transfer the house back to my name, that this is really about reconciliation and not just another strategy." "Mom, I'm your daughter." "Yes," I interrupted. "You are. That's what makes this so heartbreaking." Her face changed. The mask slipped, just for a second, and I saw calculation replace the false warmth. "You're really not going to do this," she said. Not a question. "No." She stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. "You're making a huge mistake. We're being nice now, offering you a way out. But when that hearing comes, we're going to destroy you in court. We'll prove you're senile. We'll prove Tom manipulated you, and then we'll take everything anyway." "Then I'll see you at the hearing," I said calmly. She grabbed the bakery box, couldn't waste money on lemon bars apparently, and stormed out. I sat at the table for a long time after she left. Part of me wondered if I was being too harsh. She was my daughter. Didn't I owe her the benefit of the doubt? But Robert's voice echoed in my mind. Helen, trust actions, not words. Jennifer's actions had been crystal clear. That evening, Tom called. Grandma, I've been doing some research about conservatorship hearings, what we need, what to expect. Tom, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Your family, the good kind. And I'm not letting Mom do this to you. After we hung up, I realized I needed more than just Tom's support. I needed a community. People who could testify to my competence, my independence, my sharp mind. I started making calls. First, I called my neighbor Susan, who I'd known for 35 years. Susan, I need your help. I explained the situation, enough to make it clear without overwhelming her. That woman, Susan said, her voice tight with anger. I always knew there was something off about Jennifer. Of course I'll testify. I'll tell any judge who asks that you're the sharpest person on this street. Next, I called Pastor Williams from the church. Then Carol from my book club. Then Mike, the volunteer coordinator at the library. One by one, I built a network of people who knew me, who could vouch for my mental acuity, who would stand with me. By Sunday, I had a list of 8 people willing to testify on my behalf. Margaret was impressed. This is exactly what we need. A judge won't just hear from your family and doctors, they'll hear from your community, people who interact with you regularly and can speak to your competence. The conservatorship hearing was scheduled for the following Wednesday, 10 days away. Jennifer and Derek kept their distance during that time, but I knew they were watching, waiting, preparing their own strategy. I wasn't afraid anymore. I was ready. 3 days before the hearing, on Sunday evening, Jennifer and Derek appeared at my door again. This time, they brought flowers, expensive roses, the kind Robert used to buy me on our anniversary. Mom, Jennifer said, her voice carefully modulated. Please, can we come in? We need to talk, really talk, before this hearing destroys our family forever. Derek nodded solemnly beside her. Helen, we've done a lot of soul searching. We want to make this right. Against my better judgment, or maybe because I needed to know what they were planning, I let them in. We sat in the living room. Jennifer placed the roses on the coffee table between us like a peace offering. Mom, I've been seeing a therapist, Jennifer began, working through my issues, and I've realized that a lot of this comes from my own fear of losing you. When Dad died, I couldn't handle it. And the thought of losing you, too. I think I tried to control the situation in all the wrong ways. It was a good script. Therapy, grief, fear, all the right emotional buttons. Derek leaned forward. Jennifer's been so stressed, Helen. We both have. And we let that stress turn us into people we're not. This conservatorship petition, it was wrong. We see that now. So withdraw it, I said simply. We will, Jennifer said quickly. Tomorrow. First thing. But there's just one thing we need to discuss first. There it was. The catch. The house, Derek continued. We understand you wanting to protect it. We do. But transferring it to Tom? That hurt, Helen. Tom is young. He's got his own life in Oregon. He doesn't need this responsibility. And legally, it creates complications. What kind of complications? I asked, though I knew exactly where this was going. Jennifer took my hand again. She seemed to enjoy that manipulative gesture. Tom doesn't really want the house, Mom. We talked to him. You talked to Tom? My voice sharpened. When? A flicker of something crossed Derek's face, irritation that I'd caught the lie. We tried to reach him, Jennifer corrected smoothly. But the point is, a young man like that doesn't want to be tied to property maintenance, taxes, insurance. It's a burden. So here's what we're proposing. You transfer the house back to your name. You maintain full control, and we'll sign a legal agreement, drafted by a neutral attorney, not ours, stating that we'll never pursue conservatorship or make any claim to the property. You keep your house, we get peace of mind, and our family heals, Derek added. Everyone wins. I studied them both. Jennifer with her earnest expression, Derek with his practiced sincerity. And if I say no, I asked, the room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Jennifer's hand tightened on mine. Mom, we're trying to be reasonable. We're offering you a solution that protects everyone. But if you refuse... She paused, and when she continued, her voice had an edge. We have more evidence than you realize. Did you know your credit card company flagged some unusual purchases last month? Inconsistent with your normal pattern? That could indicate confusion, poor judgment. I bought Tom's plane ticket, I said. That's the unusual purchase. Or, Derek interjected, it could be seen as you making large financial decisions under outside influence, Tom's influence. So that was the new angle. Paint Tom as the manipulator. Jennifer's mask was slipping now, her voice hardening. We have testimony from a financial advisor who'll say that gifting property while facing family pressure to enter care is a red flag. We have neighbors who'll testify you've seemed agitated, paranoid even. We have everything we need to win this conservatorship, Mom. Everything. Then why are you here? I asked calmly. Because I'm still hoping you'll see reason. Jennifer stood abruptly, her careful composure cracking. Why are you being so stubborn? Why can't you just trust me? I'm your daughter. You're trying to steal my house, I said. That's not trust. That's theft. Derek stood too, his face reddening. You ungrateful. We're trying to help you, and you're treating us like criminals. You threatened me in my own home, I said, my voice level. You filed legal action to have me declared incompetent. You manufactured evidence. You're trying to manipulate me right now. What exactly should I be grateful for? Jennifer grabbed the roses off the table. Fine, fine. You want to do this the hard way? Wednesday's hearing will be a nightmare for you, Mother. We're going to systematically dismantle every argument you have. We're going to prove you're not fit to make decisions. And we're going to prove Tom coerced you. Good luck with that, I said. Derek pointed a finger at me. You have no idea what you're up against. We have resources you can't imagine. By the time we're done, you'll be lucky if they let you keep your own checkbook, let alone your house. They stormed out, leaving the roses scattered across my coffee table where Jennifer had thrown them. I sat very still, listening to their car peel out of my driveway. My hands were shaking again. Not from fear, exactly. From the sheer viciousness of what I'd just witnessed. My own daughter, threatening me, manipulating me, trying to gaslight me into submission. Part of me wanted to cry. Part of me wanted to call Tom and tell him to forget it, that I'd just accept whatever happened. But mostly, I felt cold determination settling over me like armor. They'd shown me exactly who they were. No more doubts. No more second-guessing. On Wednesday, I'd show them who I was, too. Wednesday morning arrived cold and clear. I dressed carefully. A navy suit, Robert had always said, made me look distinguished. Pearls, sensible shoes. Margaret had advised me to look composed, competent, confident. I was all three. Tom had flown in the night before and met me at the courthouse. Ready, Grandma? Ready, I said. The hearing room was smaller than I'd expected. Judge Caroline Briscoe presided, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an expression that gave nothing away. Jennifer and Derek sat on one side with their attorney, Richard Kramer. Dr. Whitmore was there too, along with two other people I didn't recognize. Margaret, Tom, and I took our seats on the opposite side. Judge Briscoe reviewed the paperwork. This is a petition for limited conservatorship filed by Jennifer Patterson Holbrook regarding her mother, Helen Patterson. Let's proceed, Mr. Kramer? Richard Kramer stood, all polished confidence. Your Honor, this is a straightforward case of a beloved mother whose cognitive abilities are declining, making her vulnerable to exploitation. Mrs. Patterson has exhibited concerning behaviors, memory lapses, impulsive financial decisions, confusion about basic matters. Most alarmingly, she recently transferred her primary residence to her grandson under circumstances that suggest undue influence. He called Dr. Whitmore first. The psychiatrist testified that based on her attempted evaluation and Jennifer's reports, I displayed signs consistent with early-stage dementia. She cited my defensiveness and refusal to cooperate with assessment as evidence of poor judgment. Margaret stood for cross-examination. Dr. Whitmore, did you actually evaluate Mrs. Patterson? I attempted to. Yes or no? Did you conduct a formal psychiatric evaluation? No, but did you review her medical records? Mrs. Holbrook provided me with information. That's not what I asked. Did you review official medical records from Mrs. Patterson's treating physician? A pause. No. So your testimony is based entirely on second-hand reports from a daughter seeking to gain control of her mother's assets? Kramer objected. But the damage was done. Next came the neighbors. Mrs. Rodriguez testified that I'd seemed confused about names. On cross-examination, Margaret had her admit we'd joked about both of us forgetting names and that she'd never seen me actually confused about anything important. The hairdresser testified about the missed appointment. Margaret produced my medical records showing I'd had the flu that week, plus the rescheduling confirmation. One by one, Kramer's witnesses crumbled under scrutiny. Then Kramer played his trump card. Your Honor, we have evidence that the property transfer was made under duress. Thomas Patterson stands to inherit a valuable asset. He had motive and opportunity to manipulate his grandmother. Tom's jaw clenched beside me. We call Thomas Patterson to the stand, Kramer announced. Tom stood, walked to the witness box, was sworn in. He looked young sitting there, but his voice was steady. Kramer circled like a shark. Mr. Patterson, when did you learn about your grandmother's house? I've known about it my whole life. I grew up visiting there. When did you learn you would inherit it? When my grandmother called and told me she wanted to protect it from my mother's attempt to steal it. Kramer's eyebrows rose. Steal it? Strong words. Your mother is concerned about your grandmother's welfare. My mother threatened her, Tom interrupted. Told her she'd take the house through the courts and sell it. I have texts from my grandmother describing the encounter. Texts you could have coached her to write. Objection, Margaret called. Counsel is badgering the witness. Sustained, Judge Briscoe said. Mr. Kramer, ask your questions directly. Kramer shifted tactics. Mr. Patterson, isn't it true you benefit financially from this property transfer? Not for decades, hopefully, Tom said. My grandmother has a life estate. She lives there as long as she wants. I can't sell it, can't profit from it, can't do anything with it until after she's gone. And honestly, I hope that's 40 years from now. His voice cracked slightly on the last sentence. It was genuine, and everyone in the room could hear it. Then it was our turn. Margaret called Dr. Morrison, who testified about my perfect health, my sharp cognition, my complete mental competency. He brought test results, medical charts, documentation that demolished Dr. Whitmore's second-hand diagnosis. She called Susan, my neighbor, who testified about our book club discussions of complex novels, about me helping her with computer problems, about my managing the neighborhood watch program. She called Pastor Williams, who described my volunteer work organizing the church food drive, managing inventory, coordinating dozens of volunteers. One by one, my community spoke for me. Then Margaret called me to the stand. I walked up calmly, placed my hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. Margaret's questions were straightforward, allowing me to explain my reasoning for the property transfer, my relationship with Tom, my awareness of Jennifer's financial problems and her threats. Then came Kramer's cross-examination. Mrs. Patterson, don't you think it's unusual for a woman your age to suddenly transfer her most valuable asset? No, I said. I think it's prudent estate planning. Did Tom suggest this transfer? I decided it. I contacted him. After he'd been visiting more frequently, he visits every few months. He called every Sunday for 10 years. Our relationship didn't change. What changed was my daughter's behavior. Kramer's face tightened. You're alleging your own daughter would try to harm you. I'm stating facts, I said calmly. She threatened to take my house. She filed this petition. Her actions speak for themselves. Judge Briscoe leaned forward. Mrs. Patterson, why do you think your daughter filed this petition? I met the judge's eyes. Because she needs money, and my house is worth approximately $800,000. If she controls my assets through conservatorship, she can sell it. That's not care. That's theft. The courtroom went very quiet. Jennifer started crying, loud, dramatic sobs. Derek put his arm around her. It was a performance, but Judge Briscoe's expression didn't change. Anything else, Mr. Kramer? He had nothing. No, Your Honor. Judge Briscoe closed the file folder. I'll take this under advisement and issue a ruling within 48 hours. We stood as she left the courtroom. Jennifer glared at me across the aisle, mascara running. Derek whispered urgently to Kramer. I walked out with my head high. The call came Thursday afternoon. I was in my garden, pruning the roses, when my phone rang. Helen, it's Margaret. The judge issued her ruling. My heart hammered. And? Complete dismissal. She denied the conservatorship petition in its entirety. And Helen, there's more. Judge Briscoe included a statement in her written opinion. She said the petition was frivolous and brought in bad faith for financial gain rather than legitimate concern for the proposed conservatee's welfare. She's ordering Jennifer and Derek to pay your attorney's fees. I sat down hard on the garden bench. She what? All your legal fees, every penny. And she's flagging their attorney for potential sanctions for bringing a baseless case. Helen, this is a complete victory. After I hung up, I sat in the garden for a long time, letting it sink in. I'd won. Not just won, I'd been vindicated. A judge had seen through Jennifer's manipulations and called them out publicly. The written opinion arrived by email an hour later. I read it twice, savoring every word. The court finds no credible evidence of diminished capacity. Mrs. Patterson presented as articulate, well-informed, and fully competent. Her medical records and community testimony paint a picture of an active, engaged, mentally sharp individual. In contrast, the petitioner's evidence consisted largely of speculation, second-hand reports, and a clear financial motive. The timing of this petition, immediately following Mrs. Patterson's lawful transfer of property to protect it from these same petitioners, is particularly telling. This court will not allow conservatorship law to be weaponized for financial exploitation of competent elderly individuals. Judge Briscoe hadn't just dismissed the case. She'd eviscerated it. Tom called minutes later, whooping with joy. We did it, Grandma. We actually did it. You did it, I corrected. You stood up for me when it mattered most. Are you kidding? You stood up for yourself. I just helped. That evening, Margaret called again. Helen, Jennifer's attorney just contacted me. They want to discuss a settlement agreement. Settlement? They lost. What's there to settle? They're worried about the sanctions. Judge Briscoe referred Kramer to the state bar for investigation. They want you to agree not to file a separate elder abuse complaint or pursue damages in exchange for them dropping any future claims to your property or person. What do you recommend? I recommend you take it, Margaret said. Get it in writing, signed and notarized. They agree to no future conservatorship petitions, no claims to your estate, no contact unless you initiate it. You agree not to pursue additional legal action. Clean break, permanent protection. And if I refuse? If. You could pursue damages for emotional distress, elder abuse, legal costs beyond what the judge awarded. Might win, might not. But it would drag on for months, maybe years. More depositions, more court appearances, more stress. I thought about it. Did I want to spend the next year fighting? Or did I want to close this chapter and live my life? Draw up the agreement, I said. But I want one additional clause. What's that? If they violate this agreement in any way, any contact, any legal action, any attempt to interfere with my life, they forfeit any claim to my estate entirely. Everything goes to Tom. They get nothing. Margaret chuckled. I'll make sure that's crystal clear. The settlement agreement was finalized Friday afternoon. Jennifer and Derek signed it at their attorney's office. I signed it at Margaret's. We didn't have to see each other. The agreement was brutal and comprehensive. No future conservatorship petitions under any circumstances. No contact with me unless I explicitly initiate it. No claims to my estate, property, or assets. No interference with my medical care or legal decisions. Payment of $47,000 in legal fees within 30 days. Violation of any term resulted in complete disinheritance. It was everything I'd wanted and more. Saturday morning, I woke up in my house, my home, knowing I was safe, legally protected, untouchable. I made coffee and sat in Robert's chair, looking out at the garden we'd planted together 40 years ago. Somewhere, Jennifer was probably crying or raging or blaming everyone but herself. Derek was probably calculating how to recoup their losses. I didn't care. My phone rang. Tom. Hey, Grandma, I was thinking. I get spring break in March. What if I came out for a week? We could finally tackle that garage organization you've been talking about. I'd love that, I said. And Grandma? Thank you for trusting me with the house. I know it's more than just property. It's yours and Grandpa's legacy. I promise I'll take care of it. I know you will, sweetheart. That's why I gave it to you. After we hung up, I walked through my house slowly. Every room held memories. Every corner had a story. This house had witnessed love and loss, joy and sorrow, births and deaths, and it would remain in the family. The real family. The people who valued love over money, who protected rather than exploited, who honored rather than manipulated. I'd fought for it and I'd won. Jennifer had tried to take everything, and she'd ended up with nothing. That evening, I treated myself to dinner at the Italian restaurant Robert and I used to love. I ordered his favorite wine, toasted his memory, and enjoyed every bite. I was 78 years old, legally victorious, financially secure, and surrounded by people who actually loved me. Life was good. 6 months later, my life had transformed in ways I hadn't anticipated. The first change was Tom. He'd been offered a teaching position at a high school just 40 minutes from my house. It's actually a better school district, he told me over dinner. Better pay, smaller classes. And Grandma, I could see you every weekend instead of twice a year. He moved to town in August. We had Sunday dinners together, sometimes at my place, sometimes at his new apartment, sometimes at restaurants we wanted to try. We went to bookstores and museums. He helped me finally digitize Robert's old photo albums, a project I'd been putting off for years. Having him nearby filled a void I hadn't fully acknowledged. This was what family was supposed to be. Mutual support, genuine affection, time spent together because you wanted to, not because you felt obligated. The house itself got a new lease on life. Tom and I spent a weekend painting the guest room in cheerful yellow. We updated fixtures, repaired the fence, planted new flowers. This place looks better than it has in years, Susan commented one afternoon. I also found new purpose. Pastor Williams asked me to coordinate the church's outreach program for isolated elderly community members. You understand what they're going through, he said. I threw myself into it. We created a volunteer network, scheduled regular wellness checks, organized social events. Within 3 months, we'd helped 12 seniors who'd been at risk of exploitation. I shared my story at a community center. How I'd recognized the warning signs, protected myself, fought back. The irony wasn't lost on me. Jennifer's attempt to exploit me had actually led me to help prevent others from suffering the same fate. I hosted book club meetings, game nights, took a watercolor painting class. I traveled to Oregon, took a road trip to Yellowstone with Susan, spent a week in New York seeing Broadway shows. At 79, I was living more fully than I had in years. Meanwhile, Jennifer's life had taken a decidedly different trajectory. I didn't seek out information about her, but in a small community, word travels. Derek's real estate business collapsed entirely. The bad investments Jennifer had mentioned were actually worse than she'd let on. They'd leveraged properties during the market peak, and when values dropped, they couldn't cover the loans. Bankruptcy followed. They lost their house, lost the luxury cars, moved into a small rental on the other side of town. Jennifer struggled to find work. A 15-year gap as a homemaker made employers wary. She finally found a retail job at a department store for barely above minimum wage. The $47,000 in legal fees had wiped out most of their remaining savings. Tom had tried to reach out to her once, suggested they meet for coffee. Jennifer had screamed at him over the phone, called him a traitor, said he'd stolen his grandmother's house and destroyed his own mother's life. Hung up on him. Tom had been hurt, but not surprised. I tried, Grandma, but she can't admit she did anything wrong. One Sunday in November, I saw her at the grocery store. She was at the checkout counter in a store uniform, scanning items. Her hair was shorter, grayer, pulled back in a practical ponytail. She looked tired, older than her 50 years. Our eyes met across the store. For a moment, I saw something in her expression. Regret? Recognition of what she'd lost? Then her face hardened. She looked away and continued scanning. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt sad. Sad for what could have been, but I didn't feel guilty. She'd made her choices. She'd faced the consequences. That evening, Tom came over for dinner. We cooked together, his specialty, homemade pasta, and talked about his students, my outreach program, a book we'd both just read. After dinner, we sat on the back porch watching the sunset. You know what Grandpa would say about all of this? Tom asked. What? He'd say you're the toughest person he ever knew. I smiled. He actually did say that once, right before he proposed. The sun sank lower, and the first stars appeared. I was home, I was safe, I was loved, and I had won. Looking back now, I understand something important. Protecting yourself isn't cruelty. It's wisdom. Family isn't just blood. It's who shows up, who protects you, who loves you without conditions. Being kind doesn't mean being weak, and setting boundaries doesn't make you heartless. If you're facing something similar, manipulation, exploitation, don't be afraid to fight back. Get legal help. Document everything. What would you have done in my situation? Leave a comment below. And if you found this helpful, please subscribe. Thank you for listening. Remember, you're stronger than you think.